minutes too late because preparing Hegel always takes time. And we are going live one last time to introduce Filip's course on Hegel, which will begin, if you can believe it or not, in exactly 4 days. So it's Wednesday today. On Sunday, April 30th, 6 p.m. UK time, Filip will begin his course on Hegel. And I think you're beginning on the encyclopedia.
That's right.
Opening of the system. So we will discuss the course a little bit, but also we're going to go over the aesthetics, which is another text that you'll consider in the final lecture. So yeah, maybe we can start there or somewhere else, wherever you want to start.
Yes, well, hello everybody. Good evening or good morning, or wherever you are. Thank you for tuning in and joining us. Right, so aesthetics. Hegel has two big chunky tomes he left us, where he sort of lectured, did a big series on art and aesthetics, contrary to other philosophers. He actually dove into the history of art and looked at artworks, tried to make sense of them, right? He didn't just look at the concept of beauty or the sublime, even though that is also included. But he also thought, well, what is the actual embodiment of these things? How did people do art and find things beautiful and sublime throughout history, throughout time? Because our sensibilities, our sense of aesthetics, our concept of beauty changes. And so Hegel was really interested in that. So what is, how do we make sense of something that's beautiful? Why is it beautiful? What does it mean for something to be beautiful or sublime? And as all good things, Hegel's sort of lectures or system of art and aesthetics is subdivided into three big parts. You have first the concept of beauty, which is kind of the overarching idea, and Hegel kind of analyzes that, examines it, gives us in his systematic structure of that. Then he dives into more historical territory, but still it's in the conceptual realm, and that's where he talks about what he calls the particular forms of art, which also come in three, which is the symbolic, the classical, the romantic, and I guess you could argue that there is a kind of a fourth form that's kind of on the cusp of coming, and that's like the end of art. We can maybe discuss that a bit later. And then the third part of this system is the individual forms of art, where Hegel then goes deeper into kind of the singular element. So like, how are these things actually embodied? So there he analyzes things like architecture, sculpture, painting, music, and poetry. So he looks at those things by themselves and makes like philosophy out of what is music? How do we make sense of something being music? Music itself has a development of its own that's not tied to the particular forms of art. So Hegel goes, crazy on that level too. So there's lots of stuff there. So that's a kind of brief snapshot of Hegel's system of art.
Yeah, thank you. So if anyone has any questions for Filip on the course, let us know now. This is the last time we're going live. I also have to say that we're offering the course now, and it will be some time until we can offer it again. So it's been 2 years, and now it's 2023. So if you want to learn some Hegel with Filip, you do have to enroll now because it might be 2025.
Well, at least we don't know, right? It could be even later. I might get busy with other things meanwhile.
I hope not, but yeah, it could be. Who knows? And for anyone who's joining, there's 7 lectures, 9 group seminars, and I think in total 10 videos, though, for anyone who enrolls. Let's begin, though, with the end, of course. Let's begin with the end of art, That's something that everyone has heard, but no one has understood, I guess. And if you have questions, I said again, just ask.
Yeah. What did you begin, Johannes?
No. You should.
Well, I guess
Only end of art.
the first thing we should note is that end here is not understood so much as the ending of something, but as the goal of something. I think that's I'm remembering correctly here, right? In the German, it is Zweck.
No, he does speak from Ende der Kunst. Yeah. No, he does speak. Sorry, he does speak that the art is something of the past for us. Kunst ist für uns etwas Vergangenes. Yeah, he does mention that.
Right. Yeah, but the title of the section in German, is it Zweck or End?
We need to find the section first. Let me try and find it while you're helping us understand what's going on here, regardless of the German for now.
Yeah. So regardless of the German, we can also understand end as a goal and an aim, right?
Yeah.
Towards which end is this activity being done towards? However, as you just mentioned, it is also the sense that
Zweck der Kunst, yeah.
Is it the Zweck?
Yeah, there's a third, the Zweck der Kunst, and then das Prinzip von der Nachahmung, the principle of the imitation of nature, etc.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But it's correct that you say that it is something.
Er sagt vergangen. Ja. Aber vergangen, ja.
One thing that I think we extract from the whole section, that Hegel's whole account on art, is that art is no longer the highest means for us through which we attain truth. I think that plays an important role for Hegel, that if you want to get at the truth or figure out the meaning of life, to just put it crudely, right? Figure out what's what. Art isn't going to be the best means for you in order to achieve that, but it's also going to be what's it called? It's also going to be necessary, right? Although not sufficient. So it's not that Hegel's saying we stop appreciating beauty and the sublime and engaging in art and aesthetic experience.
Yeah.
But he thinks that this is not what's going to give us maybe the highest satisfaction or give us what we really seek, which is the truth. So the truth does appear, it has an immediacy, and that immediacy is in beauty and the sublime, but that's an immediacy. The mind wants to go deeper to understand, well, why is it like that? And the moment we posit that, like put ourselves in that mode of questioning, we're no longer in art anymore. We are in thinking, we're in doing philosophy. And so already it's implicitly there, right? That this isn't enough for us. Even though we need it, Hegel recognizes that, we need something even more, something different, something deeper maybe.
Yeah, that's very important that you so pointed out. So Philosophie kann nur nachdenken, the German would say. So philosophy can only think after, nachdenken. Think after, let's put it simply, it thinks after the fact. Not only after facts, obviously, but philosophy sets in the moment when something has come to pass. Yeah?
Yeah.
So when we consider art, we're not journalists. We're not writing on the artwork of the day, but with philosophy can consider that which has found to a certain degree, let's say, completion or fulfillment.
Yeah.
And in that sense, it is etwas Vergangenes, but it's not over. In that,
Yeah.
so it's not. We should never think of Hegel as. And also in the because every time you teach a Hegel course, I read more Hegel, and I just notice how often this comes up that Hegel supposedly believed that Prussia is the logical end state of history, and it's the status quo must be accepted, which I don't think is there at all.
Well, it isn't.
Which leads me to, there's a question: do you have a favorite quote of Hegel? My favorite quote by Hegel perhaps is that history is a slaughter bench. Another one that's always mistaken: the owl of Minerva spreads its wings only with the fall of dusk. That's a very famous one. Yeah. Sorry, go on. I'm still looking for the.
I also have favorite quotes from Hegel.
Yeah.
The one I like a lot is the ripest maturity, the highest stage that anything can attain is the one at which its fall begins.
Yeah.
This is from the Logic
Yes.
in the Doctrine of the Concept.
Yes, great.
It's
Oh, that's something
fantastic.
else coming to mind, because you will be discussing. Is it the second? No, that's the third lecture and third seminar. You're going over the good infinite, right?
Yes.
The hour of their birth is the hour of their death.
Yeah, that's finitude.
Yeah. That's okay. So to anyone who's just joining in, this Sunday, Filip will begin again with his Hegel course. 9 weeks of Hegel. Best way to spend early spring and summer. And yeah, if you know anyone who's interested in Hegel, just share the video with them, or maybe the enrollment link. The link to enroll is in the description of the video. We've got a good group together, and we'd be delighted to have you with us as well. Tiny Wanderer says, how has metaphor stood in the way to understanding Hegel's dialectic? What has it ever not stood in the way of, by God? In terms of philosophy. Don't tell Miguel I said that, by God. He's got a whole book on metaphor.
Do you have a response to that, Johannes?
Well, I think we'd probably need to hear a bit more from Tiny, let's just say, what exactly is meant here. But I think as a heuristics, let's say metaphor, which is usually quite image-rich language. Okay, I'll put this in a different way. An access to Hegel that is Vorstellung. How do you usually translate
representation in
that?
English?
Yeah, representation, but in terms of Vorstellungsdenken.
Picture thinking?
Yeah, picture thinking. That's what I was looking for. So if you approach Hegel in terms of picture thinking, you try to imagine something, you try to represent being, pure being. I remember when we did the German Hegel course, people asked in the live chat, wie kann ich mir das vorstellen? How should I imagine that? We said, there's nothing to imagine. I don't know where Hegel says this, and I think I'm paraphrasing this a little bit, but he says somewhere, beim Denken muss einem Hören und Sehen vergehen. In thinking, you have to lose hearing, your senses of hearing and seeing, at least to a certain degree, which, by the way, very similar to Plato, who also says that it's through arithmetic and geometry that we can, as a training in education, gain an understanding, not in a Hegelian sense, or an insight into proper philosophical thinking, because there, let's say, the imagination just cannot really, at least in arithmetic, not so much maybe in geometry, but there's nothing in the world that can be represented in that manner. So the I think in that way, it probably, in some sense, let's say, some picture thinking stands in the way of not just Hegel, of philosophy in general. And this is something that you will learn at the course, especially in the first three lectures and seminars, is to suspend with your own presuppositions and assumptions and this urge to have immediate schemata and conceptions with which to operate. Hegel asks us and demands from us to suspend with any and all presuppositions. And it doesn't matter whether Hegel had any presuppositions himself. When you read the text, actually, it's much more important that in this method, you learn, I think at least, you learn something about thinking itself, and that how often we approach something with preformed categories that we have never questioned.
Yeah.
As, for example, identity and difference, which we don't have at the beginning of the logic, but which we only have at the sometime down the middle of the Seinslogik, which are ultimately also concepts of the understanding necessary.
Wesenslogik.
Oh, Wesenslogik, sorry. Been too long. Which are categories of the understanding, but still necessary. But not to be absolutized. That would be my response.
Yeah, that's an excellent response. I think you touched on the important points. Prioritized, presuppositionlessness. I think that's so. The thing about picture thinking, it's like a grab all sort of bag where any kind of thing that has to do with images or representing something in terms of something sensuous or something of what it's not, right?
Yeah,
is kind of no-go in Hegel's speculative thinking, because you're kind of missing the point of what you're trying to get at, which is the thought itself. Now, metaphor is a little bit tricky because metaphor is its own sort of weird thing. It's not simile or analogy, right? Often metaphor and simile and analogy are all confused together, but metaphor stands apart, and it stands apart in the way it sort of has an implicit twisting of its meanings, which kind of might seem like there was some thought there. But Hegel would still be very dissatisfied with that, because it's always going to be an implicit thought. It's never going to be something that can be explicated as such. And so we must always presuppose something. And the whole point, whole exercise, I think, that Hegel wants us to try is that we suspend our presuppositions so that we can figure out what is really going on here. What are these categories, this identity, difference, justifying, understanding that I think I know what is about, or so on.
Yeah. So obviously Hegel is difficult, but you will learn indispensable lessons, I think, on what, let's just say, what thinking is, and as Filip just said, if a metaphor is, I think, did you say it's a bit of a trick? Did I hear that right?
I think so. Yeah. It has a kind of twisting of meanings.
And as it's implicit and figurative and associative, it can trigger different associations with different audience. So it is actually, so it can appear as though it were very clear, but it might not be at all. Hans Wader, or Hans Vader, depending, asks, so to speak, this is a meta-reflection. What say you to that?
What is a meta-reflection?
Yeah, I know. We don't. So I would say this: we don't need to go there. We don't need to say a meta-reflection.
Isn't the reflection already a meta thing, right? built into a reflection to be meta.
You know, the
It's
meta,
reflecting.
the meta really. I think I started noticing that in 2013, 14, for some reason, all of a sudden everything became meta. Everything had a meta level. The meta joke.
Well, you have metaphysics, right?
Yeah, well, that's just the folly of academia. But
It's a regular folly of academia.
you know, when if you need, yeah, it's a bottomless pit, right? I mean, at some point, how do you get the next grant? Well, by inventing the next term.
How do you get the next grant? Guys, we need to get the next grant.
But wait, look what I'm pulling out of my magic hat now.
Yeah.
What about the meta reflection of the meta crisis? I once jokingly wrote a
Pre-post meta crisis.
Yeah, no, I mean the meta crisis is, but I think there's something that really comes through here also, which is again this attempt of solving through a priori considerations issues that are not a priori, but very concrete problems. So there's a very strange leap back and forth that always has to make insane or unsane amounts of presuppositions, which then leads to an infinite regress if you listen to these discourses in the so-called meta-crisis sphere, which of course then falls into its own meta-crisis. Is, as I said, it's a bottomless pit. And instead, and I think this is what Hegel is to a certain degree getting at, is that thinking needs to get clear again on the categories that, on its categories, period.
Yeah, but you mentioning a priori, I think that is just so hard to think in terms of a priori and sorting out what belongs to a priori and what belongs to a posteriori, right? It's not an easy thing to sort out, because often we use a lot of a posteriori in order to make sense of a priori, and when we do that, we're basically kind of doing a sort of sloppy sense of empiricism, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously,
but that is not because you're being silly, but because the nature of these things is just is so hard.
Yeah. So I'm just very briefly showing everyone here the enrollment page, which you find in the description of the video and in the chat. We begin this Sunday, but of course you can also enroll in just all lectures for self-study, and group seminars are here. Philosophical dialogue with Filip is here, the third one, and importantly, we are closing enrollment very soon. So if you want to join us, now is the time to act. Okay, do you want to say more? We've got here a question by Yurai or Yuraj. Does Zizek misinterpret Hegel? Everyone's favorite question. Well, misinterpretation is a strong word, but
I think also it's a little bit too strong. Yeah, and I don't think that's what Zizek is up to. I think Zizek is his own philosopher.
Yeah,
which is part Hegelian, part Lacanian, part Marxist, and part just his own weirdness, right?
Yeah.
And I think he brings a lot of interesting things to Hegel's philosophy and extracts a lot of interesting angles from it and brings it to new places. But it's ultimately him, Zizek, that is his philosophy, I think. Now, so that is its own bag. But then there's this other side where you have, okay, well, how is Zizek like as commentator on Hegel?
Yeah.
And on that score, I would say he's atrocious. He's good in exciting you and so on, but really getting down to the meat of things, telling us what's going on, get to the Sache, it just falls thin because he just goes all over the place. It just becomes frustrating.
Yeah,
he's not helpful there, I find.
Yeah,
he's helpful in other respects, but not in helping me understand Hegel.
Yeah, there are better people for that. For example, Dr. Filip Niklas. who is
Or
virtually sitting.
Wilkins, Winfield, Burbage, Di Giovanni, lots and lots of people. Yes, but I do try to.
Even Heidegger.
Even Heidegger.
Not Schelling. Also, our very
Or
own
Kierkegaard.
Sebastian Ostrich, also, who's written a book in German on Hegel. If anyone is German, but yeah, so Stephen Holgate comes highly recommended. Of course, so does Dr. Filip Niklas, who for some reason called himself "The owls are not what they seem" today.
I'm paying homage to a certain creator.
Yeah. So anyone who's, because I just saw people coming in, anyone who's just joining now, this Sunday, Philip's Hegel course begins. I see Susan is here. I hope you can make it this time as well to continue your studies. Susan did the German Idealism course last year and your phenomenology course. And what better way, I always say, to spend your summer than reading Hegel? Very briefly, I'll summarize this. You're going to read the parts of the encyclopedia, the beginning of the science of logic, the good and the bad, infinite and finitude in the science of logic. You're then reading the philosophy of right. I think 2 lectures on that, a lecture on the philosophy of history, and a lecture on the aesthetics. If you enroll in the seminars, there are 9 seminars in total. And those seminars, so 7 seminars, 7 of them will be academic. So that means you'll be discussing in each seminar just the reading and Philip's lecture. In the reading week, there's no additional reading, but you're meeting still with Philip, and you're going to discuss a film that has Hegelian themes. Which one, I think you will decide in the group. I did that last time for the Heidegger course, and that really, I think, is very helpful in between to have a bit of a break.
Yeah.
In the final seminar, that's where if you actually take the seminar, that's where you can present a talk. At these pro seminars, you can present a talk or a poem or a song or whatever, within the boundaries of decency and legality, of course. And that will be published, if you want it published, on my channel. The most recent one you'll find as it's the Heidegger Pro Seminar, which was published just a couple of weeks ago, so you know what it's like. You're meeting other people to read with Hegel with them, and under the guidance, of course, of Philip. And also, you'll be, if you enroll in the seminars, you get access to the Halcyon forum. You can stay in touch with the people. I'm hearing that a reading group on Dostoevsky has formed. I think they're reading Crime and Punishment. So that's something you can join. I think Max is running that, as far as I was told. So that might be... Yeah, go on.
When you get an investigation, you shouldn't be surprised then. Why?
I'm not following. And what?
If you get a police investigation, right? A detective knocking on your door and asking you questions, you shouldn't be surprised why.
I'm not Raskolnikov, okay? I have other...
No, but you just have 10 of them in a group. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, okay. Yeah, okay. That's... we all have delusions of grandeur. I think Raskolnikov is probably the worst approach to trying to become an individual.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the but you can also, of course, if you don't have time for the seminars, you just enroll for the lectures here, self-study lectures, 10 hours of video and audio. You just go through the text. These materials are provided. You can see actually on here so you can't see the videos, obviously, but you can see the titles of the lectures, and you can see what we're reading. Let's have a look at it again. Encyclopedia, Science of Logic, the Philosophy of Right, Philosophy of History, and the Aesthetics. So this is open now. Link to enroll is in the description of the video and also in the live chat. So we're beginning this Sunday. I hope you can make it. We have a few more questions, and if you want to say something, just let me know.
Yeah, can I add something to what you said? Yeah. So, people are joining us on the internet, and we seem to live in an era of abundance of information, right? Why pay to take a course online when you can just, look up resources? It seems like there's never-ending supply of stuff on YouTube.
That's the bad infinite, literally.
uh,
That infinite supply. Go on.
but I think that signing up to a course like this, any kind of course, is giving you something you will never get from these other looking up content on YouTube for free, and that is your own commitment, right? You commit yourself to something. You pay something. For money you've earned, you worked for, or whatever, right? And you are put into something that you're anchored to, you're committed to it, and you find yourself sort of taking almost like a leap of faith, right? Because you're putting yourself into a situation where you're going to have to be for many weeks ahead. But then once you get into that, you discover you're not there alone, right? You're there with a whole bunch of other people who are also committed. And that's not an experience you can get, I think, so easily from just browsing on your own. I think you can achieve great stuff on your own if you have discipline. But this is also what I think comes with taking a course, is that you sort of get a little bit of discipline for free, because there is a structure, there is an instructor, there is a gathering, people come together, there is so a lot of things are taken care of. You just need to sort of take up and join in. So for anyone doubting, for other reasons why someone shouldn't take a course like this, I think there are valuable. These are some of the valuable reasons why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Excellent. Sorry, I forgot. Okay, there's here a question by Mitchell Wittig. You don't spend much time on this. It's on the phenomenology. Mitchell, Philip has an entire course on the phenomenology of spirit that you can enroll in also. Hegel describes in the phenomenology the dialectic based on the development of a circle as a geometric shape. I find it difficult not to always think of that example when you read Hegel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there is. One can get hooked up on the circle thing. I think the best. So for me, the best thing about the circle is it sort of illustrates something being self-referential. So, so Hegel's development is at every stage also trying to become a closed circuit. So you sort of see this at work in, just take an example, the science of logic. When you start out with being, well, being turns into nothing. Nothing turns into being again, and then nothing, and then being, and then nothing, right? So it seems like there we have a circle of sorts, right? Something so like a closed circuit. So you need to sort of bend your thinking 90 degrees in order to see the new difference emerging, because you can't see it sort of. Now I'm using analogies here, by just looking straight on, as we were doing with regards to being and nothing. So I think the circle is helpful in thinking of things being self-referential, that they sort of become self-supportive or coherent, which then in the next moment undermine themselves, and so on it goes.
Yeah. I think I remember Mitchell from a few weeks ago. I don't know, but it would be good if you enrolled and you can have a more detailed discussion. on this with Filip and the others. So let us know if there are more questions on the course. Filip, if you want to add something, you can do so now.
Well, there's another question by Tiny Wanderer. Is metaphor implicit to positing determinations? If so, how can we determine determination? Perhaps meta could mean something here. Well, Hegel does never use the term meta in the science logic, as far as I recall. Like just standalone meta, right? He does talk metaphysics and so on, but he doesn't use the term meta. And he does determine determination. That's the kind of big part of the doctrine of being is trying to get at what does it mean to determine something in the first place, because we can't start with something already determined without taking something for granted. So that is a huge issue there. So if Hegel is right, then metaphor is not implicit in positing determinations. In fact, it might be the other way around. Positing determinations is implicit in metaphor. And in fact, in a whole lot of other things, right? Our experience is made up of determinations all around us. But you'd have to read for yourself, right? What Hegel writes, and to see whether it makes sense to you, and whether we can determine determination the way Hegel presents us, or if we do need indeed to bring in the term meta. Like maybe there's something Hegel leaves out, but we can only know that by studying Hegel carefully.
Yeah. And the best, most careful way to study Hegel is, of course, with Filip. Okay, so once... Oh, yeah. So Tiny Wanderer says, thank you, Dr. Niklas. Very proper. Okay, so have a look at the enrollment page, everyone. And the way in which Filip conducts these conversations here, that's similar to what the seminars are like, just with a few more people. Maybe I'll just say a word briefly on what the seminars, what happens during them. Usually we begin with a brief introduction. You come prepared, and then we send you off, or Filip will send you off to into breakout sessions where you discuss the texts for that seminar. And once you come back after about 40 minutes or so, there's a general discussion in the group. So you have enough time to meet others. We usually break up people a couple of times, so you meet someone else every week. And then there's still enough time to have to hear from everybody else, but also to hear and learn what Filip has to say. We usually record those sessions only for the group. They're completely internal. And that allows you to, come back to this library and go through the recording again, take additional notes. Filip has also recorded a video on how to read philosophical texts, basically on, let's say, on the right approach. So that's included here also, so that you can also learn how to learn, basically learn how to read. We would, if, of course, even if you can't make the seminars, just to add to what Filip said before, the course itself is, you're still dedicated to a course and to certain readings in Hegel, and not just dedicated to just a few videos here and there, which basically just usually, let's be honest, ends up being a distraction. This is a serious philosophy course, and it is, of course, it's demanding, but it is also that's necessary, or else you're reducing the philosophical weight to infotainment, for lack of a better word. So I would highly encourage you to enroll. The link, as I said, is in the description, but also in the live chat. And if there are no more questions, we can. So let's say if there is one more question, let us know. We can answer that. Filip, do you have anything to add before we leave?
Well, Shiny Shadow had a question earlier on. What do you think about Klaus Vivek's view of Hegel? So I don't know enough about Vivek. I've met the man, funny guy.
Yeah.
But I haven't read enough of his stuff to really, map out his position properly and then have a good proper judgment on it. So I couldn't really say at this point.
He's a very nice gentleman. I've met him several times over the years. First time, I think, in Italy in 2012. And yeah, he's been to Warwick quite often, right? He was in Warwick quite often.
Yes.
Yeah. He also published a biography, a Hegel biography. They seem to be coming out at least 10 or so a week.
Yeah. There's just so much in his life, terribly exciting.
They all find new things.
Yeah.
I think the most important one is this one, The Money of the Poets, where we learn that Hegel, das Geld der Dichter. Nein. Wo ist er? Hegel. So, Hegel, when he was an editor, he had a bastard son, didn't he? Oh, a son out of wedlock. But he was an editor in Bamberg for a while, and I'm looking for here. He wrote to Niethammer in July of 1807 when Niethammer asks him, how he finds it, and he says, das Bier ist hier gut. The beer is good here. But he didn't like being an editor at all, especially because of censorship. So he began to write book reviews as well. So, and I think he was glad when he was out. By the way, Hegel in 1816 as a professor in Berlin, guess what he earned per year?
A lot.
400,000 euros in 2020 terms. But, and every Hegelian hates this fact, Schelling, when Schelling is in Berlin, Schelling earns 1 million euros per year. Yeah.
Was that when he was called in to crush the dragon seed? That was Hegelianism.
Yes.
Yeah.
They paid him well to do it.
Yeah.
And he did succeed.
He didn't. Well, I'd say they didn't get their money's worth.
He looked right into the Abgrund of money, and the Abgrund of money stared back at him. So yeah, but the funny thing is, when Hegel died, there was almost no inheritance because they had spent it all. Because that life was very expensive.
Yeah, it all went to the operas.
No, I mean it was spent on it was spent on wine, on meat, and especially on all the people who worked for them.
Yeah.
It is a lot of money, but they basically spend everything at that time. So yeah, very interesting book for anyone who's German. Das Geld der Dichter by, I think, Frank Berger is his name, on all the poets and writers and philosophers of the time of the age of Goethe, the Goethe-Zeit. So I like to invite you all again once more to join Filip's Hegel Masterclass, which will begin this Sunday if you join the seminars. If you have any more questions after this, just leave a comment. If you want to take the seminars, make sure to enroll before Sunday. And if you want to perhaps speak with Filip, just get the 3rd tier here, or of course only the lectures. So we hope to see you on Sunday. I'll be there for a little while, and just to listen, not to interfere.
But there's no such thing as pure passivity, you know. There's always some activity.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. If you know anyone who's interested in Hegel or German idealism, anyone who's serious about studying philosophy, just send that this video to them and let them know about the course. This is we're not quite on 400,000 euros yet, are we? But enrolling in a course, sorry, I just need to get my microphone back, helps us keep the lights on to also provide these videos here to a wider public, anyone who's interested in philosophy. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, everybody. Great questions. And I hope to see you in the course. It's going to be a blast.
Yes, indeed. We shall retire.
We shall retire.